Can we start by talking about your transition from your other documentaries to this one? Because I was reading up on them a little. I haven't seen them, but it seems like this is a much more like joyful and happy film.
Why do you say that? No, this is a departure.
Blame the IMDb synopsis.
Yeah. Yes, so this is my fourth feature film. The first three were very dark and serious. They were about topics like wrongful conviction and terrorism and toxic chemicals that are bad for you and killing you and your children. So this is definitely a story about a little boy who's doing awesome, who's in remission from cancer, who had this amazing dream, was definitely a departure. Yeah, my kids wanted me to do something that they would like, which I was offended by, of course, when they first said it, but then I understood. Yeah, so it was time to do something a little lighter, and I was just thinking actually while we were doing our last interview that if I had to talk about one other of those as much as I had to talk about Batkid today, it would be so much more difficult, but it's such a pleasure. I mean, every day working on this for like more than a year, including all this, a year and a half, it's been just a joy. It's like you smile when you talk about it, you smile when you think about it, and it's awesome.
It is a thing where we've been talking about it so long, you'd think at a point it'd be enough, but like I'm revisiting it last night while watching this, and it just made me feel really good all over again.
Yeah, it's definitely a feel-good thing, and like the thing I really loved about it was every person I met in the production of this, including these two jokers, not jokers, penguins.
Penguins.
Like, they're all more inspiring than the next person, and there's people you want to be around, people you want to be like, people who you want to be invited to their barbecues.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
And you know, so these are the kind of people that you want to be with, and so to be able to be on this journey with them, making the film, and now traveling to publicize the film, it's just super fun.
So is like half your wardrobe penguin stuff now?
It is now, actually. I'm collecting so much penguin-y stuff. Like anytime, I was just in London and we went to this comic book shop right by place I was at for a few weeks, and there was this little like travel pass holder. I don't know if it even fits any cards that are North American size, but it was penguin. It's like the like evil aviary something or other, and it had like a little kind of cartoon penguin. I was like, I need it. I have to have it. So I have
years of gift giving.
Yeah.
I have Batman everything. I'm wearing Batman glow in the dark underwear as we speak.
Oh wow!
TMI.
Yeah.
You heard it here first.
That's quite the tease.
You heard it here first.
Do you see what I have to endure? We're trying to have a legitimate publicity tour for this movie, and this is what I have to do.
These are ones she didn't leave at the Hall of Justice in San Francisco, and the chief of police had to return them.
The police had my panties. That's a whole other story. I think it's the next documentary.
This is the one and only one I deal with them with.
I don't even know how to transition from that. Can you talk about it from a logistical standpoint? Because I feel like it would have been one thing if you had come on board before the actual event had happened and been like, I want to make a documentary, but you came in after, and I'm sure, I know they shot great footage, but were you worried at all that the material wasn't going to be there that you needed?
Well, so the first meeting that we took with Patricia and Jen, who also works at Make-A-Wish, we talked for about 2.5 hours, and the very last, this is how I remember at least, the very last question I asked was, you didn't happen to shoot it, did you? And they said, oh yeah, we shot it with 5 cameras. And I was like, oh, this is amazing. Because my intent going into that meeting was, you know, if they say yes and I can do this documentary, I'm going to try to crowdsource it, because the whole event was crowdsourced. So why not crowdsource the documentary? Now I realize, that was just me being my optimistic self, that like that would have been a technical nightmare, and we would have been saddled with a lot of inferior stuff. We wouldn't have had the great, you know, I think some of the great interactions between EJ, who's Batman, and Miles, and their little back and forth, because EJ was mic'd, was just the best and gave us the emotional weight that we wanted of the day. So it would have been difficult, but we still would have done it. But when they happened to have shot it for a fundraising video, we were like, yes. And then we had also very great footage from a local station in the Bay Area that donated the footage to us. And then the family, somebody had given them a video camera on their way down, like literally their way out of town. They had never had a video camera before. They just put it in their hand, and so they shot some of this behind the scenes stuff that, and you know, usually when I get home video from people in my films, I'm like, oh, it's going to be one thing. They did an awesome job. I was like, you guys shot the heck out of that. So we had all of that to work with, and then we kind of tried to recreate the rest with our professional cameras.
And why did you choose to shoot this with 5 cameras? Did you have a feeling that someone might approach you for this kind of thing?
Oh, heck no. Oh, my God, no. I blew every... I mean, I thought the documentary would be something sweet to show our volunteers as a training video. Yeah, no, it didn't ever occur to me that Warner Brothers would buy it. They would be in a real theater. I mean, I had this, we can have people in the conference room. I mean, you think of it from your usual scale of guerrilla marketing, no budget, it would just be happy. And because it was such a visual wish and it was a public wish, it was the kind of thing that I knew we wanted to capture. It would be great for the family to put a video together, and it would be something great to show at some of my events. So that was my thought.
Was there anything footage-wise that you felt was missing that you wish you could have gotten?
Oh, that's such a good question. You know, originally I was very sad because the Circus Center, which was a scene the night before when Miles got some acrobat training, which I think is pretty much one of the, if not the most poignant scene in the film.
It's my favorite part of the movie.
Right, it's a great scene.
Yeah.
And we had heard that the Circus Center, because there was no cameras there, so the family shot some of it, and then we had heard that the Circus Center also just shot it themselves. And I was excited. This was before I had seen the family's video, and they said they lost it. They went over the footage and they deleted it. Okay?
Someone's calling me.
So yeah, so I was really bummed when I heard that the Circus Center lost their footage. But you know, the families was so good that it turned out to be fine. You know, and here or there was a shot that I wish had finished. Like we would see something and then they would cut away and I'd be like, where did the end of that shot go? You know, a couple things like that. But that would have happened if we shot it as well. That just happens.
The crowdsourcing thing could have been a cool idea, but you definitely would never have gotten all of that behind the scenes type feeling. And also, I feel like everyone saw what you would have crowdsourced also.
Right, right. I mean, and it would have been, it probably would have delayed us quite a bit because like just the undertaking of just culling all of that from all the sources would have been hard. But we would have done it and it would have been great in its own way and it would have been its own kind of shtick about the film, you know, but maybe it would have become a little bit more about that, the crowdsourcing aspect of it, than what it became. So.
How about just managing all of your interview subjects? Because it really blew me away how many people you included.
I mean, these people...
I wouldn't shut up though. She came to interview me at work for an hour. Said it was going to be an hour. We set up because I work at Lucasfilm, so we set up like lights and stuff. So we had like a nice room. We had nice like proper studio lights, and I talked for like 5 hours. I wouldn't shut up, and like I feel so bad for Kurt, our editor, on this. That it's like, man, that's a lot of slicing.
I mean, do you remember when you came in and talked to us about the documentary? Initially,
this is funny. I know she's gonna say.
She said she wanted it to be a short film.
Yeah.
And then within a few minutes, I mean, even that day, you were like, okay, well, let me get a hold of the footage. And then Jen and I started thinking about the people that were interesting. We knew about the retired school teacher. I said, oh, there's these 2 retired school teachers from Ohio who flew
that was the best.
And she's like, do you have their contact info? I'm like, yeah. And so then
I got accepted to the Cleveland International Film Festival with my other film, and I'm like, if I get an all-expenses trip to Cleveland, Google, how far is Cleveland from Akron?
Yeah.
45 minutes.
This is called small documentary budget.
Yeah. Like, oh, okay, I'm going to go to Cleveland, and then I'm going to shoot in Akron, and it was awesome. It was awesome. So, yeah, I mean, it was fun. It was great. I mean, interviewing people is like my favorite thing to do of all of the parts of the movie making. So, you know, and I remember Audrey Cooper, I said she's now she's the executive editor of the San Francisco Chronicle. Yes. So I remember saying to her in the newsroom, like, every person I interview is like cooler and more fun than the last person. And like, it's the kind of interviews you do when like you're smiling throughout the whole interview, you know, and it was great.
I will say though, the only downside of you being in your office is that I was constantly paying attention to everything in the background.
Oh, really?
I love me some ILM, and I just could see everything there.
That's from our clay room where we do like a sculpting class. So there's like some cool stuff that all employees have done all that stuff. Yeah.
How about the cartoon portion at the beginning? Did you ever toy with the idea of shooting that in any other way?
No. Like that was
right at the beginning.
Yeah, I mean, like that was like an idea I had like immediately, really because I wanted it to be kind of an easy way to talk about leukemia and talk about a very sad thing, him going through his treatments and just finding out about leukemia. And so I wanted to animate it. I was a little nervous about finding the quality animator that I would need, and Mike actually helped me do that. He put out a post to everybody at ILM and DreamWorks.
Pixar.
Oh, and Pixar.
And DreamWorks too, I think.
He
Oh,
put
that's
out,
all.
Yeah, just
yeah.
a few.
So he put out a mass email, and I got a few responses. And then Rob Simmons, who was the graphic, the animator, he and I wrote back and forth, and I loved what he said when he said, "Listen, because I can't obviously afford the rates that I should pay people. Documentarians can never." And he said, "Listen, I talked this over with my wife. We have 2 young sons, and we believe that we should do this for the good of the project." And and I was like, "All right. I don't even need to see your work." I was like, "Well, just show it to me." But, but I mean, I was kind of sold just by the way he approached the project, and I think everybody on our crew, who I hope work with me forever, they just approached it from that standpoint, and I love what he did. I love what he did.
Job,
yeah. The
They
animations
really did.
I think are beautiful.
It's a good way to match the tone of the rest of the film, too. I feel like if you just went through like a whole sob story in the beginning, it kind of would have put a pit in your stomach going into everything else. And that's something I really appreciated about this, because someone, before I was going to the screening, they're like, "Well, you better bring some tissues." And, it's very emotional, but I wouldn't say I walked out like wanting to cry. Instead, I felt, really uplifted and inspired.
Yeah, and that's a really big point I want the movie to come away from. Like, I'm worried people, because I know if I was going to watch a movie about a kid that died of cancer, I wouldn't want to watch it. I have 3 little kids, I just can't deal with that. But it's not that story at all. It's a story about a very healthy, knock on wood, child. Wherever's wood, your head. A very healthy child who went through something and inspired hundreds of thousands of people, if not millions. And so, like, that's what I hope I hope people go to see it for that.
How about just the story structure? Was there anything that you needed to take out for the sake of tone or pacing or anything like that?
No. I mean, what's funny is, and like, this has not been the case for my other movies, like, I wrote a treatment to get accepted into a pitching forum in Toronto, which we ended up doing, and I wrote it in January of last year, this treatment. And literally, it's spelled out the entire documentary as it sits today. Like, it never changed. Like, everything. I mean, there were some things we added at the end just because we had a little time. And, I found the Uber driver at the end. And, we weren't sure if the mayor would be in it at first, but he was in it. We added that in at the end. So things that, like, made it, but we didn't take anything out.
And now, what happens here? Because when you guys played at Slam Dance, I actually wrote up the story, I think, where Julia Roberts' company picked it up to turn it into a narrative feature. So what goes through your head when trying to pick who gets to do that? Because I imagine people must have been, clamoring for that opportunity the second this whole thing happened, too.
Luckily, I wasn't really, I was on a need-to-know basis, I think, by the agents. Like, so I have agents that sell my films, documentaries, and they had, unbeknownst to me, started a remake division. So they were starting to sell these, but I wasn't even thinking about it. Like, in January of last year, we met, or December, and, she greenlit the project in January, and I promised her I would have a cut by November 15th. I've never done a movie in less than 4 years, and I was like, sure, I can do it in 10 months, no problem. So I was just focused on getting this movie done. I was really stressed about being able to do so, but I knew I had to. So I wasn't thinking about really next steps. I mean, I was always thinking about trying to sell the documentary in that, doing it in a way that was marketable, and doing it in a way that, that people would be able to access it readily. But I really didn't think about, I know it sounds naive, but I didn't think about the remake of it at all. And then in January, right before we were going to premiere it at Slam Dance, the agents, they don't call a lot. Dan and Josh, call me more. No, they don't call a lot. And they just started kind of blowing up my phone, like, talk about the right, what kind of rights do you have? Oh, let me look at my like things that they signed. I don't even know what I had, and I did have the rights to negotiate a narrative within the contract that I had signed with these people, and so that's how it started. And then the next thing I heard, Julia Roberts was interested, and that was it.
So are all 3 of you involved right now? Because I feel like it's only natural to have you play the Penguin in the film now.
That's what they were just saying at the AOL building. They said,
There's a lot of chatter about this.
They said, how about the next Warner Brothers Batman movie? And I was like, well, Warner Brothers people are here. How come
Sign us up.
Yeah, hook it up. It's like, let's do it. But I have to have acting lessons for this, I think. But so we. The process of the remake so far, like, it's still early stages, right?
Right. Yeah. So I think we're just waiting to hear what the next steps of that are. We're really excited, and it should be a fun run.
Yeah, I think when I wrote it up, there was no writer involved, so I imagine shooting is like way off at this point.
I would think. Yeah. Yeah.
All right, now I have to wrap up, and because I'm a huge ILM fan, I want to know, what are the cool things you're working on right now?
Oh, and also I love the Pixar show. I used to work there.
I didn't even put two and two together
Well
until
done.
you said Pixar before, and I'm
I
like,
used to work there back on Ratatouille and WALL-E.
not a bad place to work.
Not a bad spot, yeah. Yeah, now these days we just finished Tomorrowland, and Jurassic World is out now. And then of course we've got
Movies.
Ep 7.
Yeah.
Star Wars is
No big deal.
a little film that is in progress.
I've heard of that one, I
Yeah, you've heard of that,
Yeah.
right? Yeah, and then
Do you have
there's
extra tickets to that?
there's more. Yeah. Oh yeah. Oh, for you guys.
Are we? Is
We'll
Definitely.
do that.
Wait, is it going to premiere at Slime Dance?
For fans, yeah. Just a little movie.
That would be a little bit of a
Yeah. So and then we've got a bunch more that are coming that are gonna be awesome.
Is there anything specific that you've contributed to any of those films that people know and love that you can kind of
that I
isolate?
can
Like,
pinpoint?
I did that.
Oh, sure. So in
That
Wally's truck, in Wally's home, I did a whole bunch of the little things. I modeled and sculpted a whole bunch of the little things on his shelf. He has like all those sort of mismatched things. There's the globe, the like world globe basketball. That was the first thing I ever modeled for Pixar, and it was in the teaser. And I was backpacking in France, Italy, I think at the time, after university, or college as they call it in America. I'm Canadian. See, I've slipped it in again. Anyway, so I was there, and a friend had sent it to me, and they're like, "You're in the teaser," and I was like, so that was crazy. But so that, and then we usually contribute to lots of different of the ILM movies, but I worked a lot on Hulk for the first Avengers. The way the skin slides over his muscles, and being able, just so the animators could have be able to work with a character of such high resolution. He's very, very complicated. In Age of Ultron, he's even more complicated. So that's crazy. And more recently, our bone structure system that drives the animation of every character we make. Me and one other colleague wrote that.